killed it. Go Big Red. Oh, no, we're not coming up. We're not coming up. It's okay. My friend Sam Allgaier killed it as well. Yep. But honestly, what stole the show, maybe you've seen it if you've been on your phones, but what really stole the show for me, if you have not seen this yet, check out this video of Oh Christmas Tree. We had an unfortunate incident happen during the tortilla. Here we go. Uh-oh. And Malloy kind of choked to death. It happens. But listen, I love camp. I first came to know Jesus whenever I was 16. And that summer, that was in February, that summer I decided that I was going to go to camp. And now we did a dress-up days, and one of the days was like, hey, dress up as a movie character. And so we're going circa 2008, summer of 2008, and there's a movie character called Napoleon Dynamite. Well, I dressed up like Napoleon Dynamite if you want to see this. Check this out. Yes. So listen, I've seen some of y'all's haircuts. That was mine. You're going to look back 14 years from now and be like, dang, that was bad. My man that was rocking a mullet up here doing backflips earlier, yeah, you're going to hate that mullet one day. Just a heads up. It's like a Jerry curl mullet. Yeah, But hey, listen, I want to tell you a story about 7 months ago. So 7 months ago, my wife and I, we were sitting on our couch in Jacksonville. And we're sifting through our phone, and what we're starting to look at is pictures of this house that we're going to be moving into in Savannah. And we're so excited because we're starting to see how our furniture is going to fit in this place, and we're starting to see how our kids are going to play in the backyard and how much fun that we're going to have in this place, and then moving to this place. But then everything went super well on moving day. Like everything goes super smooth. Getting up to Savannah. But then there's like this moment where we started to pull into the driveway, where things started to change. Like, that moment when you go through the drive-thru and you're like, oh, that Big Mac looks really good, but then you like open the box and it's like a turd sandwich, like it's just not that great. Or like if you're like a Taylor Swift fan, yeah, like you think like you listen to her songs and you think, man, these are so good. Then you spend like $800 on a ticket and you go and you're like, man, she really can't sing. Like, she's not that great. That's the moment that we faced pulling into the driveway. And what happens then is that the garage door goes up and we see the garage door to enter our house. And this is just like a hot mess, and we're like looking at this garage door, and it looks like that there's like should be a crime scene investigation happening. Yeah, right? Like this is the garage door. It's like, did a small human die against this wall? Like who needs to come over here to check this out? But then we walk into the house, and it's like we start to see palmetto bugs that are like the size of squirrels. Like we're like trying to figure this out. What is happening in this place? It's super dirty, but you know what? We just said, okay, we can take care of this. We can clean. We're going to make the best out of this. Natalie said that. I was like furious. That's just our relationship. But I was just like trying to figure this out. But then a week goes by and the dust is kind of settled. And we're outside playing on the patio. And all of a sudden I hear like one of our daughters in their rain boots jumping in like puddles. And I'm like, that's not right because it hasn't rained since we've been here. So I like round the corner, and just outside of the kitchen on the exterior wall, there's just like a puddle of water. And I'm like, that's not good at all. Like this is the one thing as a future homeowner that you don't want in your house is water. Like you just do not want that happening. So I called the landowner. I'm like, hey, we got to get this checked out. He's like, no worries. We'll be there. So about a week goes by, and so many people are in and out of our house checking out like, hey, this is what's going to have to happen. This is what we're going to have to do. It's going to be X amount of dollars, and it's not my money, theirs. And so we're like, okay, how are we going to do this? Well, then someone came and said, hey, you can fix this on your own. Never fix it on your own, okay, when it comes to plumbing. Because they decided to fix it on their own. One night they show up with a jackhammer, and they make this massive hole this massive path all the way through our patio while we have friends over, by the way, which was super easy to talk to new friends and new people. But then they run the water lines, everything goes well, but then another week goes by. And we get home one day, and we walk into the girls' bathroom, and we realize there's like an inch of standing water, and the toilet has overflown. And we're like, okay, so now we're standing in like dirty pee and poop water, and we're trying to figure out what's really happening here. So we're like, okay, maybe something's wrong with the toilet. But then like another couple days go by, and then it happens in our other bathroom. And then there's standing water in our closet. And so finally we're like, hey, we got to get this figured out. Like, what's really going on here? And so we called the landowner again. We're like, hey, listen, I don't know what it is, but this house might just sink into the ground at some point if we don't fix this water issue. And he's like, okay, don't worry about it. We'll send out some plumbers. And again, the plumbers come out and they start saying, and it's the same plumbers that were telling them how to fix it. And what they said was, you know what should have happened is what should have happened is that we should have done this, because it's such an old house, is that what can happen is that tree roots get in and they knock out some of these water lines, or that what we really needed to do was really fix it from its core. But what we really needed to do is get to the root of the issue, because what's happening is that water is getting basically anywhere that it wants to within your house. But you got to get back to the issue, and you got to fix that issue before you do anything else. And you know, this is something that as a society I don't think that we're very good at, is fixing issues. I think we're really poor at getting back to the root of issues and dealing with them. Because what society tells you, well, anytime you get on social media, is that you should be angry at something this week. There's always something that is happening that you should look at and be like, you know what, I need to be angry about this one thing. And if not, then I haven't chosen a side and I'm on the other side, and then I don't fit in, and then I'm canceled. Unfortunately, when it comes to dealing with issues, that's what society has put on us. And you know, there's an issue that Peter 2,000 years ago, he's hanging out with the disciples, and there's Jesus there, and he's trying to figure out this core of this issue. And it's the same issue that we're dealing with 2,000 years later. And what Peter's trying to get to, he's like, Jesus, what does forgiveness really look like? What does it mean to truly forgive? What does it mean, Jesus? Jesus jumps in to a parable. He says this. He says, therefore, the kingdom of heaven is like a king who wanted to settle accounts with his servants. As he began the settlement, a man who owed him 10,000 talents was brought to him. Since he was not able to pay, the master ordered that he and his wife and his children and all that he had be sold to repay the debt. At this, the servant fell on his knees before him. Be patient with me, and I will pay back everything. The servant's master took pity on him, canceled the debt, and let him go. But when that servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 silver coins. Okay, so here's what we got to understand. Like, we're looking at some first century language here just a little bit when we see this word talent. Now, a talent is worth 20 years of a day laborer's wages. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. 20 years, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to try to put this into today's terminology and what this can really look like for us. So let's multiply like 2,000 years of inflation, because inflation is real, am I right? But then, like, how many of y'all have a job? Anybody have a job? Yep. How many of you make like $10 an hour at least at that job? Okay, well done in high school. Not bad. Okay, so let's just say day labor, $10 an hour. That's what they're making, okay? Let's say that person works 50 hours a week for 50 weeks, because you got to get that 2 weeks of vacay. But then, now we got to multiply that by 20. And we're at $500,000. And this king, the master, forgave him of 10,000 times that. So we're talking $5 billion worth. $5 billion worth that he was willing to say, you know what, I'm going to forgive you of this. And when we look at the silver coins, see, if we did 2,000 years of inflation with that, we're talking about $1,000. So we're talking $5 billion over here and $1,000 over here. So, like, if you really think about this, like, we're in $5 billion world, like, we're in Elon Musk territory, right? Like, the guy decided to buy Twitter to give it to his son, Optimus Prime, or whatever it is. It's like a math equation, you know? It's like, it has, like, shapes in the 90s. Remember, like, wingdings, the font? Yeah, it's like, by the way, if you ever put a shape or a number in your kid's name, probably not going to like you. Parenting tip. I'm sure he loves his dad. But, you know, he gets Twitter for his birthday. I got, like, a Game Boy. But we're talking $5 billion to $1,000. Now, let's try to compute that for just a second. Like, $5 billion, let's just say you wanted to stay in Savannah and, you know, live a relaxed life and everything be okay. Like, you could buy the in-market arena for $165 million. Or for $1,000, like you could not go buy a crap Google phone, but you could get yourself an iPhone, right? Like you could go get yourself an iPhone. Or with $5 billion, you could stuff all that into some NFTs or some Bitcoin. You know, I'm not going to be your financial advisor. Don't do that absolutely ever. Or what you could buy in this economy, you might be able to buy with $1,000 a tank of gas. Am I right? Yes, right? I didn't think that would get cheers. That's good. Or, now hear me out. Hear me out on this one. If you had $5 billion, if we're rolling $5 billion, what if you offered it to Milligan College to relocate so we don't got to walk up that dang hill anymore? Yes! I'm done. All right, see you guys. No, I'm kidding. But hey, seriously though, we're talking about a super high level of money, but then there's this very little bit. Now we got to see what he does with this. The servant grabbed him, and he began to choke him. "Pay back what you owe me," he demanded. His fellow servant fell to his knees and begged him, "Be patient with me, and I will pay it back." But he refused. Instead, he went off and had the man thrown into prison until he could pay the debt. When the other servants saw what had happened, they were outraged and went and told their master everything that had happened. Then the master called the servant in. "You wicked servant," he said. "I canceled all that debt of yours because you begged me to. Shouldn't you have had mercy on your fellow servant just as I had on you?" In anger, his master handed him over to the jailers to be tortured until he should pay back all that he owed. Verse 35, and hear this. "This is how my heavenly Father," Jesus is saying, this is how God will treat each of us unless we forgive our brother and sister from our heart. The problem is pretty simple. Like Jesus is getting to the root of the issue here. Is that there is the king was willing to forgive him of all of this, of 10,000 talents, $5 billion, if you will, was willing to forgive it all. But yet he wasn't willing to forgive something so little. Now, I think where we really got to get to in the root of this issue, James brings it up in James 1:19 when he tells us that we should all be quick to listen, that we should be slow to speak and slow to become angry. But you know, we're just not good at that in the world today. We're just not. We don't listen, in fact. You know what we do? We try to bring out our opinion. You know what? The world tells you that you should get whatever you want, that whatever it is that you believe is what your truth is. Can I just be honest with you? There's no such thing as your truth. There's no such thing. There's such thing as the truth and your opinion. It is. And I know that may ruffle some feathers, but that's okay because I'm just going to be honest with you. When it comes to the truth, it is concrete. It is never ending. It is infinite. It will forever be the truth. And your opinion will change probably tomorrow. But then we're very quick. We're very quick to post. We're very quick to talk behind people's backs. We're very quick to go tell someone else about what just happened. And can you believe what they just posted? Can you believe what they just said? Can you really believe that? And we go talk about people. And we're very quick to become angry. We get triggered. Whenever someone on one side, against us, on that opposing side, says something about our side that we stand on. And there's no way that we could ever agree. There's no way that we could ever come to terms. Because when I look at the world and I see our political climate, I see that there is one side that you have to stand on, or there's this other side that you have to stand on, and neither side's ever going to agree. Neither side is going to forgive one another. Both sides are just going to continue to point and say it's their fault. Or when I look at racial inequality, when I look at racial inequality, we can look and say, man, just because they were born there, they were born into that house, that financial situation, from that country, with that color of skin, we say, you know what, I can't be around them because history tells me that I'm not supposed to agree with them. History tells me that I can't even hang out with them. Or when I look at the sexuality, when I look at gender identity, we just look at the other side and we say they're wrong, they're a bigot, they're forever going to be that. And neither side is ever going to forgive one another. But you face this every day. Vaccinated, unvaccinated, masked, unmasked. We face this on a daily basis, but sometimes this gets very personal. Because maybe we don't sit on either side of one of those, but this gets very personal when it becomes people that are hard to forgive. Because maybe there's a friend that you can think of that has really hurt you at one point in your life, and it's been so hard to look back on that and forgive them. Because it's something that they did to you, or something that they said to you, or said about you to someone else that you heard about. You can't forgive them. Or maybe it's a coach or a teacher. Unfortunately, maybe it's a parent. That maybe because that parent was never there, that you can just never forgive mom or dad. Or maybe it's because those parents got divorced. And there's no way that you can forgive either side for this, because now you're stuck in the middle of it. And it's not fair. And you're never going to be willing to forgive one of them. Or maybe it's a Christian. Maybe it's maybe it's the church. Maybe you've stepped foot into a church before, or your family has a history of church hurt, where you've stepped into one of these spaces and you thought that was supposed to be a safe space. Christians are supposed to look like this. But man, you experienced something way different. And it just didn't happen for you. And the people that were supposed to be nice to you were actually the worst to you. The people that were supposed to be the Christians behind closed doors didn't feel like that. Or maybe it's someone here in this room that's hurt you, that you have a hard time forgiving. Maybe it is. Maybe it's been so hard to even be here at camp because you know what that person has done to you, you know what they've said to you, and it's just hard to even look at them. It's hard to even go to church because it was hard to get on the bus because you knew that they might have been even riding the same bus as you. It's been really tough, but there's no way that you can forgive them. See, when I was three, my parents split, and I've never really known what marriage was really supposed to look like. Never knew. Did not grow up in a Christian home. Neither home knew who Jesus was. But the thing about them splitting was you know, it happened at such a young age that you think like, you know, you don't even remember anything. That's okay. But I felt the weight of it the rest of my life, constantly stuck in the middle. And I've always had such a hard time looking at my parents and just being like, man, could you not just be normal and figure this out? And then 3 years ago, sitting with my dad, I said, Dad, tell me. No one's ever been willing to tell me. I guess it's like the youngest kid problem. But no one has ever been willing to tell me why it is that you guys decided to get divorced. And my dad told me the worst news that I ever thought I could hear. My dad told me that he was cheated on, that my mama had an affair on him. And ever since then, I've had such a tough time looking at my mom. I've had such a tough time building that relationship that I should have with my mom. And I've never been able to look at her the same. And I know that my mom has struggled with that since that happened. Because she'll talk about it every now and then. She'll talk about how she made mistakes, but she would never share. And here I've sat by myself saying, I can't forgive you. You broke up this family. How could you do that to me? How could you do that to us? How could you do that to my dad? Seriously, Mom? I can't forgive you. I can't do it. But then when I look at forgiveness, when I look at what really forgiveness is supposed to be, forgiveness isn't something that is supposed to really just pass by, something that I should just continue to push off like I have the last 3 years. It shouldn't be something that I can just continue to excuse the behavior or just be like super polite to my mom, willing to call her every now and then. That's not forgiveness. Forgiveness is given. Forgiveness is actually dealing with it. It's actually having the tough conversation. It's actually choosing to say, you know what, I'm willing to lose in this situation. You know what forgiveness is? You know what forgiveness looks like? It looks like 2,000 years ago that God took on flesh to experience life just like us. Knowing what was ahead of him, Jesus still came. Even though he knew that the cross was waiting for him, Jesus still chose earth, still chose us. Because what was waiting for him on Calvary was the worst instrument of death. Now see, a lot of people have died on crosses. A lot of people in that time died, suffered through crucifixion. But this was different. This was different. Grace was up on that cross. Forgiveness was up on that cross. Mercy was up on that cross. And all of that rose 3 days later. And because of that, that 10,000 talents worth of grace, of forgiveness, has been given to you. It's been given to all of us. It's been given to that person that you're having a hard time, even when I brought it up. That person that has hurt you, that has said something to you, that same forgiveness that is just for you, it's for them too. So here's what I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask leaders, if you're in the room, just like last night, I'd love for you to go ahead and stand around the outside. Because here's what I want you to see as you start to see leaders stand up again. Is that these leaders that have been here all week with you, that have decided to take their vacation and hang out with high school students, that these leaders would agree with me on something. These leaders would agree with me that where this is going to take place, where we have to start moving forward, where we have to start seeing forgiveness, What we truly believe in is that where we're at in this world today is not a good place. But you know who's going to make it a better place? You. What's sitting in these chairs right now. The generation of change is sitting right here. The generation of change is filling up the high schools in Savannah. The generation of change, of mercy, of forgiveness, of grace. The generation of change is sitting right here. It's going to happen, friends. It's going to happen through you, though. And so, tonight, you've been handed one of these. And I like I said earlier, I grew up on a farm, and so we planted gardens, we planted massive fields, and on each of those, you would get one of these. Because what would happen is that you would take a seed, whether it's tomatoes or potatoes or any other toes, and you would throw it into the ground and you would plant something. But what you had to have was you had to know what was in the ground. You had to know what was being planted. You had to know what seed was waiting to be grown into something. So you've already written your first name. So what I want you to do on the backside, I want you to write the name of that person or the name of that people group or that situation that you can think of. Because the generation of change is going to happen when we start forgiving one another, when we start looking at both sides and saying, you know what? It's time to be different. So this is all I'm going to ask you to do. If you're bold enough, take this, and we got planters placed right up in front. One on this side, two here, and one over here. When I'm done, are you bold enough to come put this up in a planter? But then, if there's something that you're like, man, I gotta talk to somebody about this, because the person I need to forgive, I need to go talk to them in this room. Or man, you know what? I could really use some prayer with an adult leader. Or you know what? I need to really have a conversation about what it means, what this grace really looks like. What it means that the fact that there was the Son of God chose me, went to a cross, rose, so that one day I could too. Maybe you need to have that conversation. Leaders are standing around the room. But here's the thing. It's time to move. It's time to start acting. Because the generation of change